Let me to ask a second question. What is the difference between Indians and between Indians and Pakistanis? When you meet them, you find out this remarkable fact that there is no difference. We are the same people, we have the same likes, same dislikes, same emotional reaction to events. So why has Pakistan sunk into a quagmire? And why is India at least finding some way towards an economic horizon of prosperity and a shared life? The answer exists. The answer is that the idea of India is stronger than the Indian, and the idea of Pakistan is weaker than the Pakistan. What is the idea of Pakistan? The idea of Pakistan is based on a fancy, a notion which has no history, which has no resonance or echo in the history of Muslims. There's really nothing called the history of Islam. It's a history of Muslims. There is no echo. There has never been, this is what Maulana used to argue all the time. He says, when in the history of Muslims has religion ever been the basis of nationalism? Within a year of the Prophet's death, Shias and Sunnis were against each other. And let's cut a long story short, if Islam had been sufficient as a basis for nationalism, then why would there be 22 Arab countries? Now why and how was an idea that had absolutely no history behind it? Now Pakistan was not born over breakfast. It was not born in the 5 years. It was born out of a set of false fears. And that falsification began with the creation of one word. I will just deal with two of the many aspects of this subject, because we don't really have time for more. What was the first word that created this notion? That was a word called minority. I ask Muslims, whenever I speak in front of the audiences, when did you become a minority? Were Muslims a minority when the Mughals were in power? Was the Hyderabad Muslim a minority when the Nizam of Hyderabad was in power? The Muslims have always been demographically in a minority. They were in a minority when Muhammad Ghori turned up. They were in a minority when Jinnah turned up. But did they see themselves as a minority? And the answer is no. No one thinks of himself as a minority if he is in power. So the battle here, which is what democracy offers to Indian Muslims, is the chance of empowerment. And therefore the elimination of this word is extremely important to the discourse. But out of this word, an elite of Indian Muslims created something as dramatic as the division of a nation and of a motherland. Now, when did this whole process hit critical mass? It hit critical mass in 1937 elections because the Muslim League found that despite calling itself both Muslim and a league, it had no Muslim support. Even in Bengal, it was the Krishak Praja Samaj of Fazlul Haq which won the elections. The Muslim League had to be dragged by force. Why? Because you cannot sell fear to a community which has no history of fear. It was an idea that was artificially created for the protection of an elite, for the service of an elite, which manipulated the masses. Never forget that these elections we are talking about were only 10% of the electorate. They were not adult franchise elections. The poor could not vote in. What happened after 37? When Jinnah realized, Jinnah began his career, of course, as a great secularist. In 1906, when the first delegation went to create the Muslim League, he was the only prominent Muslim who refused to go. And the reason why he said that if you accept separate electorates, you will partition the country one day. But by 36, for a variety of reasons. Now, what does a great lawyer do when he loses the case? He changes the story. That is precisely what Jinnah did. The story before that was the security of Muslims. He switched it to something that had actually arisen during the Khilafat movement. From Muslims in danger, he turned it to Islam in danger. And that was when the marriage between religion, Islam and politics was fused. When you turned out and said Islam in danger and you took out this great false argument that every mosque would be destroyed, the Quran would be burnt, the Muslims would be killed and prejudice, that is when the areas that you talk about like Pakhtunkhwa, and which had a tremendous history of Ghaffar Khan and the Congress Party, they also succumbed to this notion. Now, Jinnah thought that he could play games with both people and ideas. He did not realize that this was one idea that is going to swallow him and defeat him. Jinnah kept his house in Bombay. He sold his house in Delhi for 3 lakhs. The Nizam of Hyderabad offered him 10 lakhs for his house in Bombay. He never sold it. I often think that he actually thought that Pakistan was going to be like some princely state, where you could still keep coming up and down from here, there, and so on. We shouldn't blame this generation too much, which actually before the liberation of India from British rule, there was no concept of a post-colonial state, because there wasn't any. So nobody knew what this all would be, and what this animal called democracy, how it would function. However, this one thing that he did, the fusion of Islam and religion,